Right, the first one I've got to speak about has to be the GymPin or the mini pin if you're weak. They don't really provide much utility. You do not get more versatile or a better utility product than nowadays. There are so many bullshit pieces of equipment and gym accessories on social media and online shopping. So in this video, I'm going to tell you which ones are the worst, which ones are the best, so you lot know which ones you should spend your money on. Let's find out. So I'm going to be rating each accessory on a scale of 1 to 5 based on 3 categories: value, effectiveness, and utility. I'll then take their individual rankings, add them all up, make an average, and give you a final rating out of 5. Right, the first one I've got to speak about has to be the GymPin or the mini pin if you're weak. I mean, I suppose you've got to be relatively strong to have to use one of these, but regardless, GymPin, not as a brand, but GymPin himself. So if you don't know what they are, you slot them into the cable stack at the middle of the stack and then put the pin at the bottom of the stack. That is if you want to do more weight than the full stack of the cable stack, and then you slide plates onto it and do extra weight. You can use the mini pin or this pin, I suppose, the normal gym pin, to do like incremental weights. So if you're stuck between the two weights, you can use this. So they start from 40 quid, which is the mini pin. You can get mini pins for like upwards of 50 as well if they're special edition ones like the black ones or stuff like that. And they go up to between 60 and 70 quid, depending on which gym pin you get. You can also get king pins that are like 80 plus, but most people don't need them. They're like the top of the top of the top. So realistically, between 40 and 80 quid is what you'll be spending, depending on which one you need and if you want a limited edition one or not. So obviously it's not a budget item. It's not a budget gym accessory at all, but the 40 quid one, so the mini pin, is just a little bit more than like a budget accessory, I would say, especially if you're an avid gym goer. So price wise, it's not super cheap. So on that note, I'm going to rank the GymPin's value for money at a 3 out of 5, because it's not cheap. It's not a cheap item, but also what you get when you pay for it is a lifetime of improvement. Having a GymPin gives you so much more time to improve, because you're now adding, or able to add, I should say, so much weight onto the stack. So that will improve your strength and your hypertrophy no matter what goal you have. Right, let's talk effectiveness. Obviously, it's very effective at helping you progressively overload because you just stick extra weight on the stack. You can use it to progressively overload without using the full stack. You can use it to progressively overload with using the full stack. So I don't think it really matters at what level of strength you're at, because anyone can use it. So on that note, I'm going to rate its effectiveness a 5 out of 5. Now, utility. This is quite an important one. So I think the utility of a GymPin is really good because obviously you're able to progressively overload on a standalone cable stack or a pin-loaded machine, whether that be leg extensions, leg curls, or upper body machines like chest flies, all of that good stuff. So I think for that, I'm going to rate it a 3 out of 5. The only reason it's not a 4 or a 5 out of 5 is because obviously it doesn't allow you to progressively overload with free weights, so like dumbbells or barbells, that sort of thing. So I think that's a fair rating on utility. So that makes GymPin's overall rating a 4 out of 5. This has got to be spoken about, the extra long tricep rope. And obviously there's a big difference in lengths between the two. This one is double the length of this one. Right, so let's talk price first. This is $32.95 on average. So not super cheap again, but getting towards the cheaper end of the scale, especially when you compare it to a lot of other accessories you can take to the gym. $32.95 is not super expensive. And the quality, especially of this one, is very high. So I'm going to rank it on value for money a 4 out of 5. Because at the end of the day, you are still spending 30 plus quid on a tricep rope, but because of the value it provides you, I think value for money should be a 4 out of 5. Right, let's talk effectiveness. The whole idea of this extra long tricep rope is for you to get even better of a contraction at the bottom of a tricep extension, so down here. And I'm not being funny, it does perfect at its job. It does exactly what it wants to do. The reason you buy it is to get a better contraction at the bottom of the movement, and that's exactly what it does. Unless you're managing to do it wrong, and like pushing down here for some reason. Only thing I would say is that you can't get a stretch, really. Unless you're kneeling down like this, you cannot get a stretch. Because you're stood up here, it's so long, the movement stops there. So you kind of do have to take a big step back, set yourself, and then finish the rep at the bottom. But that being said, not many people are going to want to step back this far for a tricep extension, or a tricep pull down, I should say. So that is the only caveat to this particular piece of equipment. But I am going to rate its effectiveness a 4.5 out of 5, because that is the only thing it doesn't allow you to do is get a better stretch. But it does what it wants to do, just sort of inhibits another part of the exercise. Now let's move on to utility. Obviously, there's not much you can do with this. You could cheat and hold higher up on the tricep rope, which I suppose still works. Then you've got them all like, you know, swinging at the bottom and all that stuff. So you still can use it as like a, I don't know, like a lat pullover, or even like a short tricep rope if you want a good stretch and you're just pumping down to the middle. But because there's not really much you can do with it, apart from triceps, which I know that's what it's made for, but ultimately when you're paying for equipment, you want it to have good utility, so you're not restricted to using it on one thing. So I'm going to rate utility a 2 out of 5.
So on that super low utility rating of 2 out of 5, that brings the overall rating for the extra long tricep rope at a 3.5 out of 5.
Let's talk lifting straps. If you've never seen lifting straps before, or never used them, or never even heard of them, you must be living under a rock. These are a game changer for my back days in particular. You can't really use them for anything else, but we'll talk about that properly when we go through the categories. So I'm not going to compare the price of these exact ones because these are a Leico and they're quite expensive, but lifting straps in general, you can get for 15 quid, albeit probably not amazing ones, but you can even spend 20, 30 quid and get slightly better ones, like leather ones like these. These are not 30 quid, but you can get very similar ones for about 30 quid. So value for money, I'm going to put lifting straps at a 4 out of 5 because you can get them quite cheap, but you do get what you pay for. So it's sort of like you pay a bit more, you get better quality. So I think a 4 out of 5 is a fair rating for value for money. Right, effectiveness. Lifting straps are extremely effective at doing their job. Their main job is to make sure you don't lose grip, or so you don't allow grip to become a limiting factor when doing back movements or even bicep movements. And assuming you set them up correctly and use them correctly, they are beyond effective in doing their job. When I first started using them, I used them incorrectly and thought these are just a waste of money. Then I realized I was using them incorrectly. I started using them correctly, and they are now just a game changer for my back days. I don't even have to think about my grips now. I can just hook and pull. So that is really all you want them to do, and they are the best at doing that. So I'm going to give these a 5 out of 5 on effectiveness. Right, let's talk utility. Obviously, these are very good at doing their job, but that's about the only job they do. They can't really help you with anything else apart from reducing the need to use your grip, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when you are ranking pieces of equipment that you're spending your hard-earned money on, you want to think about utility and how many uses you can get out of them. So, because you're able to use them for all back exercises or most back exercises, I'll rank their utility at a 3 out of 5 because it does provide a very good benefit to a whole muscle group, which is, at the end of the day, a very important muscle group for looking aesthetic or becoming strong. But because they are only able to benefit that, I'll keep them at a 3 out of 5.
So with a very high value and effectiveness rating, that puts the overall rating for lifting straps at a 4 out of 5.
Knee sleeves. So let's talk cost first. These are 80 quid from SPD. You can get them for cheaper, but with a product like this, you want to spend the money on them because, you know, you're helping reduce pain and just enabling you to do exercises you might not have been able to do before, or at least comfortably. So value for money, I'm going to put these at a 3 out of 5 because they are expensive, but they do provide you with a lot of benefit. So I think a 3 out of 5 is a fair rating for value for money for these. Right, let's move on to effectiveness. So you're really going to use these if you've got dodgy knees, right? And they are the only thing I have found that actually allows me to squat. Anything else I use has not allowed me to squat. whether that's hack squat, barbell squat, Smith machine squat, whatever it is, I can squat pain-free when I use knee sleeves. So I think that goes to show that the effectiveness of knee sleeves has got to be a 5 out of 5. It just has to be. If you're able to do an exercise pain-free that you wouldn't normally be able to do pain-free, just because of this, I think it's got to be a 5 out of 5. Now, utility. Obviously, they're a lot of money, but the effectiveness sort of means that you can weigh up the options, right? But in terms of utility, they don't really provide much utility apart from anything that involves your quad muscles, okay? So doing leg extensions, squats, anything like that, they're great, useless for anything else. So for utility, I'm going to put them at 2 out of 5, but that does not mean they're good at what they want to be good at. It just means they're not very versatile, and you sort of only have to use them, or can only use them, in the way they're intended to be used.
So with that brutal utility score, that puts knee sleeves overall rating at 3.3 out of 5.
Moving on, we're going to talk about wrist wraps. So if you don't know what these are little pieces of like elastic fabric type thing that you wrap around your wrist when you're doing like chest movements, and it properly stabilizes your wrist, makes it nice and solid, so you don't have any wrist problems. So, value for money. You can get a decent pair of wrist straps for 30, 40 quid, which isn't too bad considering the benefits it provides you. So value for money, I'm going to rank wrist straps a 4 out of 5. So let's talk effectiveness. This is a very similar thing to what I said about the lifting straps, that if you use them properly, they are extremely effective at stabilizing your wrists and reducing wrist pain. But if you don't use them properly, they will not work. The whole idea is that they are supposed to be tight, wrapped around your wrist to stabilize them. You want them like that, not this, okay? That's not a good wrist wrap. This is. I cannot bend my wrist, right? So effectiveness, as I said, if you use them properly, is very good. Your wrist should be stable and should reduce or even eliminate wrist pain totally. So they do exactly what they do, and simply for the fact that you have to use them a particular way, which albeit is the proper way, but you have to use them a particular way, I'm going to dock off 0.5 points. So I'm going to rank them a 4.5 out of 5 on the effectiveness scale. Now, let's talk utility of wrist straps. A lot of people think you can only use them for chest exercises, or pushing chest exercises, but that is just strictly not true. I also use these for a lot of my tricep exercises, particularly ones that require a lot more weight or put a lot more strain on my wrists, like skull crushers or bar push downs. So you are able to use these for your whole push day. So that covers 2 relatively large muscle groups, chest being really big muscle group, triceps being not massive, but still a good size. So I think the utility of wrist wraps is very high. So I'm going to also give it a 4.5 out of 5.
With consistently high ratings across all of the categories, that puts wrist wraps at an overall rating of 4.3.
Your own set of D handles. Now, just to preface this, I'm not talking about D handles that your gym may have already. I'm talking about having your own pair of D handles. This is what this whole video is about. What is worth spending your money on? Not to get biased, but this is probably the best investment I've ever made. And let me explain why. So this exact pair are $24.95. And from GymPin, they are the best D handles I've ever used, regardless of the fact that they're mine or not. First off, they have like the metal knurling, like a barbell, and they only have 1 loop. Not like these ones that have 2 that get all in the way. They're awful. They have 1 loop, that's all we need, and it's smooth. Anyway, let's stop making this an ad. So value at $24.95, these are a budget gym accessory. If you can afford a gym membership, you can afford a pair of these. These are literally the same price as most gym memberships are per month. So to have your own pair costs you almost nothing. So for value, I'm going to rate these D handles a 5 out of 5. Okay, now effectiveness. This is a hard one to rate for D handles because how effective can D handles be? They are just an attachment, I suppose, and a very versatile attachment, but we'll get onto that later on in the video. So for effectiveness, I'm going to give these a 4 out of 5 Because the only thing that makes them not great as a pair of D handles is that when you are doing chest flies or chest presses on the cables, they can get in the way. This fabric strap, you know, can catch on your arm, it can rub, not a great feeling, but everything else, they are extremely effective, especially if having this metal knurling to hold on to. So let's move on to utility. You do not get more versatile or a better utility product than your own pair of D handles. You can attach them to just about everything that can change or better. So I don't want to particularly say it can better every exercise, but it can definitely change every exercise the way you do it. Not only can you put it on a cable like this, you can put it on a lat pull down, you can put it on a bicep curl, you can put it on a seated row. There is genuinely almost endless opportunities to use a pair of D handles, particularly when they're your own, because then you're not hogging them. And what makes them even more versatile is the fact that they are your own. You can take them, use them for as long as you want, and you're not waiting around for a pair of D handles to do your next exercise. So I've got to give these a 5 out of 5 to utility.
So if super high scores across the board, that takes D handles overall rating to the highest yet at 4.6 out of 5.
Lever belts. Right, so as far as value goes for lever belts, you can get them for between 50 and 220 quid. And now obviously that depends to what extent you're training and how good of a lever belt you need. If you're just a general hobbyist and you need a cheap one, 50 quid might do the job. I would recommend paying a little bit more, closer to 100 for a lever belt like this price. But if you're professional, 220 quid, like the 200 quid mark, is where you'll be at for a lever belt. So for value, I'm gonna rate lever belts at a 3.5 because you can get them cheap, but because there's so many options and you just don't know what to get, you might end up overpaying for what you actually need them for. So, effectiveness. The whole point of a lever belt is to help you create intra-abdominal pressure, which is pressure all around your midline, and it creates even more support when you're doing super heavy or just in general compound lifts. So if you're doing a barbell squat, you can step back, create that pressure, and they do work. They help people feel a lot more confident when doing heavy compound lifts and does take a lot of the pressure off of your back. And it also encourages proper form because it's a lot harder to round your lower back, which you should not be doing when deadlifting or squatting. So on top of all the other benefits, it does aid form improvements as well. So obviously that has some crossover to doing compound lifts without a belt. So I'm gonna say for effectiveness, this is a 5 out of 5. Lever belts are very good at creating pressure and creating more stability when doing your compound lifts, which is what they're made for. And last category, let's talk utility or versatility. They're not that versatile, let's be honest. You have some people that will walk around the gym wearing them, no matter what exercise they're doing, but they only really have a couple exercises where you would benefit, as like I said, the compound lifts. So for utility, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
So after that brutal utility rating, the lever belt gets an overall rating of 3.5 out of 5. Right, let's take a look at the total rankings to see which ones are worth your money and which ones are not. So number 1, with a very high score of 4.6 out of 5, is the D handles. These are by far the best value for money accessories you can get for the gym. High versatility, relatively cheap, and very effective. And in second place is wrist wraps with a 4.3 out of 5. Again, these are a relatively budget friendly accessory for the gym, little bit less utility, but also very effective. And now joint third place is the GymPin and the lifting straps at 4 out of 5. The GymPin just slightly lacked in value because it was a relatively high cost product, and the utility of the product wasn't very great. However, the lifting straps are a different story because the utility wasn't great, as you could only use it for like a pull day session, but they are budget friendly and they do provide a very effective benefit to your workout. Now with another tie at fourth place, we have the extra long tricep rope and the lever belt. The extra long tricep rope sort of lacked in all three categories, but not a massive amount, hence the mediocre score. But the lever belt massively lacked in value and utility, as you can't really use it apart from compound lifts. And all the way down at the bottom, we have knee sleeves. They were just a relatively high cost accessory for the gym that didn't have much utility, but did have very good effectiveness for particular people that needed it. Well, there you have it. That is the full list of the rankings now. Take a screenshot if you want it. Remember, this is just my opinion on what I think the best and worst gym accessories are to spend your money on. So at the end of the day, just buy what you want. If you need it, buy it. If you want it, buy it. If you did like this video, smash the thumbs up and click the subscribe button so you don't miss a banger. I post every Saturday at 5 PM. Turn the bell on, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.